African Risk Capacity is a specialized agency of the African Union. To be more precise, is the African response to dealing with the risk associated with climate change across Africa. And the way we do that is we help our member states to plan, prepare, and respond to disaster related to climate. And this is extremely important because across Africa, what doesn't get talked about quite often is the impact of climate change, particularly on vulnerable communities when it comes to food security. So ARC is Africa saying this is our response as Africans, even though we're very much open to the support and the strategy partnership from the rest of the international community as such. Let me also use this opportunity to congratulate ECOWAS and the Regional Agency for Agriculture and Food, RAF, for establishing this initiative, the Regional Reserve for Food Security. This is absolutely critical and important in light of the commitment of our leaders in the region and making sure that food security is something that we take very seriously, but also protect the vulnerable community as such. Let me make 2 points. Number one, I'd like to highlight a few messages that I think it may be useful to the conversation you're about to have, and maybe challenge you with a few questions, which I hope you can address in your panel discussion. I think number one, just to say that as much as we support the reserve that you are discussing today, it may be important in our view to complement the reserve kind of approach to also other financial instruments, which will also help our countries have different instruments that allows them to deal with food security across the continent, but also in the ECOWAS region in particular. And here I'm referring to what we call a sovereign risk insurance instrument that allows countries to be able to actually transfer some of the risk to the insurance market with the hope that through a premium payment, they will have access to resources that will allow them to be able to actually take care and protect the vulnerable community as such. I believe that the combination of those instruments with the reserve that we're talking about today, it is the best way to make sure that we can actually reduce the cost of intervention when it comes to coming to the rescue of the communities, when it comes to agricultural food security as well. And I'm very delighted just to say that our commitment to continue working with the ECOWAS as well with AgriMet to develop a regional insurance scheme that will complement the reserve for food security that we're talking about, so that we can add additional instrument and solution to supporting our member states as well. It's also important to mention, in addition to providing sovereign insurance to our member states, there are so many small farmers across the ECOWAS region that are also exposed to the risk associated with climate change, but also in food security. So what I believe that we should be also thinking about is to providing instrument dealing with micro insurance and meso insurance so that we can actually protect the small farmers across the ECOWAS region. In this particular field, what is mostly challenging is the fact that the small farmers need to be organized and structured in a way that you can provide those instruments to them. But nevertheless, the same way we're looking at sovereign insurance with regard to the states, it's also important we think about ways in which to protect the small farmers by providing micro and meso insurance. And that is why I'm extremely delighted that we're partnering with IFAD and other institutions and making sure that we can provide also meso or micro insurance sort of going forward. Now, what is sovereign or micro or meso? The main challenge there for this to be actually effective, we need to look at the whole affordability of premium financing. Premium financing to governments, premium financing to small farmers, but also providing capital to insurance facilities so they can actually be financially sustainable and be able to provide the instrument that I described earlier. So this is an area I believe that you'll be discussing in that conversation, given as a former banker, you have all the bankers on this panel. I am sure together we can find ways in which to providing actually support when it comes to premium financing so we can be able to transfer some of the risk to the insurance market as well. Now, to finish up, let me just highlight three big questions, which I believe that you will address in your conversation. I think number one of the biggest challenges that we face, at least from my experience at ARC, is to make sure that the countries have a visibility on their risk profile when it comes to climate change related risk. And having access to that profile, at that visibility, I should say, allows a sovereign nation to be able to transfer some of the risk or develop some contingency planning so that when that risk occurs, they can actually intervene and come to the rescue of vulnerable communities, in this case, food security. So I hope in your discussion, you can certainly address the question how collectively in the region we can develop a risk profiling facility or platform which will help the member state at least to be able to get the necessary technical assistance and support to get more visibility on the profile as member states. I think second question I hope you will address, and that is how do we collectively develop a regional premium facility whereby we can provide the necessary subsidies to the countries who cannot afford to pay for their own premium so they can have access to the financial instrument that I described earlier. Now, let's face it, at this stage, I'm not asking for an endless premium support, but a gradual support whereby the member state at some point will begin, as they believe in the value addition of parametric insurance, as they believe in the value addition of what we do, will begin to afford and pay for their own insurance going forward. But this is just sort of a helping hand that the institution can provide just to get started, with the hope that they will then take up the premium burden over time. I'm looking at my good friend at EBIT, Mr. Mabuba, but also BRD was involved in this. Maybe in the future, as you lend to these countries, you can think of a line item entirely dedicated to lending for premium financing support in case of parametric insurance as well. And hopefully, between BRD and EBIT, we can come up with a premium financing facility for the region so we can provide the subsidies that are necessary. And last but not least, it is absolutely important, in my view, that we develop the culture of disaster risk management and financing in the region. And the only way we can do that is through advocacy, through policy reforms, so that the decision makers begin to believe that managing and governing is anticipating. You do not wait till the risk occur to come up with a solution, but you need to think about in advance and make sure that you can take the necessary measures, the necessary contingency plan, so you can actually come to the rescue of vulnerable communities. And I have no doubt our heads of states, but also will be our ambassadors, our advocates, so we can build the culture of disaster risk management across Africa. Because in the end, it protects lives. There's so many vulnerable communities, so many women, whereby if you don't take the necessary measures, when a disaster happened, unfortunately, life can actually be affected and so on. So on that note, thank you again for inviting me. And I look forward to furthering our partnership with ECOWAS and making sure that what we provide combines